The night was quiet inside the tall, alien corporate tower. Floors stretched high into the clouds, glass shining under the moon. At the very bottom, where no important person ever looked, a single man worked alone. His name was Daniel. He wore an old janitor's uniform, his hands rough from years of cleaning. Every night he mopped floors until they shined like mirrors. Daniel was not just a janitor. He was a father, a single dad who raised a little girl on his own. While the rich aliens spoke in their private offices and made decisions for the galaxy, Daniel worked silently in the background. He never complained, but inside his heart carried a heavy weight. He always thought about his daughter waiting at home. She was the reason he kept moving, even when his back ached and his eyes burned from lack of sleep. But on this night, something different happened. Something that would change his life forever. Daniel was mopping the marble hallway outside the executive chamber. Usually, those halls were empty at this hour. Tonight, 2 alien executives stayed late. They were tall, with shimmering skin that reflected the ceiling lights, and their voices echoed sharply, like blades against stone. They spoke in their native tongue and ancient alien language no human was supposed to know. Daniel kept his head down, but his ears caught their words. At first, he did not understand why his brain reacted strangely. He heard their conversation, and the strange sounds felt familiar, as if he had heard them long ago in dreams. The executives argued about contracts, politics, and secret family ties. One mocked the other, saying, "You act like a hatchling. You dishonor your ancestors." Daniel's hand froze on the mop. His mouth moved before he could stop himself. In a quiet voice, almost like a whisper, he repeated in their language, "A hatchling may grow, but a dishonored elder never heals." The mop hit the bucket with a loud splash. Daniel realized too late what he had just said. The hallway went silent. Both aliens stopped speaking. Their long heads turned slowly toward the janitor. Their glowing eyes widened, jaws stiff with shock. Humans could not speak their language. It was forbidden, kept secret, taught only to the royal families and high-ranking scholars. No outsider, not even the most trusted translators, knew the ancient form of it. Yet this poor human janitor had just answered with a proverb only their ancestors used. Daniel's heart raced. He wanted to run, but his legs felt like stone. One of the executives stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. "Human," he hissed, in broken trade language. "What did you just say?" Daniel's throat was dry. He tried to cover his mistake. I didn't mean anything. Just mumbling. "I didn't understand." But the alien's face hardened. He repeated in his native tongue, slowly like a trap. "Say it again." To his own horror, Daniel understood perfectly. His lips moved without permission. Words came out fluent, clear, and powerful, like he had spoken them his whole life. The second executive gasped. "Possible." Daniel stepped back, panic filling his chest. His mop slipped from his hands and clattered to the ground. Couldn't explain how he knew. He didn't know himself. The words had simply risen from deep inside, as if buried in his blood. The 2 aliens began speaking quickly to one another in their tongue, thinking Daniel wouldn't catch it, but he did. He understood every word. "Could he be a spy?" one whispered. "No, humans do not have access to our tongue. Then how does he know the old proverbs?" "Those are from the first families. We must inform the council." Daniel's chest tightened. He picked up his mop, trying to act normal, but his trembling hands betrayed him. He wanted to leave, but one of the executives blocked his path. As the alien leaned down, staring deep into his eyes. "You will come with us," he said in the trade language, but his tone left no room for choice. Daniel shook his head. "I just want to go home. My daughter is waiting." The alien's eyes narrowed at the word daughter. Something flickered in his gaze, curiosity, or maybe fear. He turned to his companion and spoke again in their tongue. Daniel, unable to stop himself, understood. If the child carries the same tongue, then we may have found something far greater than we imagined. Daniel's stomach dropped. His daughter, what did they mean? The janitor's night had turned into something terrifying. He was no longer just cleaning floors. He had accidentally revealed a secret that could shake the foundation of their society. As the aliens whispered and plotted, Anya realized one terrible truth. His life and his daughter's life would never be the same again. The bucket water rippled on the floor, reflecting the bright alien lights above. The quiet hall no longer felt safe. Daniel stood frozen, a tired janitor, but now with a dangerous secret burning on his tongue. And somewhere deep inside him, he felt it. This was only the beginning. The next morning, the corporate tower looked normal from the outside. Workers moved in and out, aliens in shining uniforms, humans in lower jobs carrying tools, papers, and cleaning equipment, but inside the upper floors nothing felt normal. A strange rumor had already begun spreading through the halls, passed in whispers, carried from one alien tongue to another. It began with two executives who had stayed late the night before. They had not slept. Their minds were still heavy with shock as they told their colleagues in quiet voices. The human janitor spoke the ancient tongue. At first, others laughed. Impossible, they said. Humans barely managed trade speech. No human brain could twist around the alien syllables of their sacred language. But the executives swore it was true. They described exactly what happened, how the janitor had spoken a proverb known only to the first families. By the time Daniel arrived for his night shift, the whole building already seemed to look at him differently. He could feel the stares. The workers who once ignored him now whispered behind his back. Some aliens kept their distance, as if he carried a dangerous weapon. Others followed him with curious eyes, whispering his name as though it were a puzzle. Daniel tried to keep his head low. He had promised himself that the best thing to do was stay quiet, act normal, and pretend last night never happened. But normal was gone. The cafeteria. Two alien clerks stopped talking when he entered. One of them stared at him and muttered, "That's him, the floor cleaner who speaks like the ancestors." Another alien worker snorted, "No, humans are clumsy. Their mouths cannot even shape our words. He must have copied sounds by accident." But then the first clerk lowered his voice. "I say he spoke in first dialect. Do you even know one word in that tongue?" The second alien went silent. He couldn't answer. None of them could. That language was kept away from normal ears. The rumor grew bigger with every voice that carried it. What began as a whisper turned into quiet fear, then into excitement. A few even spoke of prophecy. Their ancestors had long told stories of outsiders who would one day speak their tongue and challenge the High Council. Was this janitor the beginning of that story? Meanwhile, Daniel worked quietly in the corner of the building. He mopped, dusted, carried trash bins. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't escape. Two alien guards followed him now, pretending they were checking security, but their eyes never left him. He felt like a prisoner already. When he bent down to wring water from his mop, his thoughts wandered to his daughter. Was she safe? Did they know about her too? He remembered the way the executives had looked at him when he mentioned her. Their eyes had been too sharp, too interested. Daniel's chest tightened with worry. If rumors about him were spreading this fast, it was only a matter of time before they reached the wrong ears. By late evening, the rumors reached the boardroom of the alien executives. High-ranking officials gathered around a long black table, their skin glowing faintly under crystal lights. At the center sat the chairman, a tall figure with silver patterns on his face. The two executives who had witnessed Daniel's words stood at the front. They told the story again, their voices trembling with memory. They explained how the human had answered without hesitation, how his words carried the weight of ancient meaning. Boardroom filled with murmurs. Lies. Impossible. Dangerous if true. We cannot allow this to spread among the workers. But the chairman raised his hand, silencing them all. "Bring the human before us," he said. His voice was low and heavy. "If he truly speaks the tongue of ancestors, we must know why. And if it is a trick," his eyes narrowed, "we will break him." That same night, two guards approached Daniel while he was cleaning the glass stairs. One of them spoke roughly. "The council summons you. Now." Daniel dropped his mop. His chest grew cold. He wanted to refuse, but he saw the sharp blades hanging from their belts. He knew he had no choice. As they escorted him up the golden elevator, he saw the stares of other workers. Humans looked away in fear. Aliens leaned closer to whisper. The rumor had grown so powerful now that even the lowest janitors and the highest clerks believed it. The human janitor speaks like the ancestors. When the elevator doors opened, Daniel stepped into a floor he had never seen. Tall walls carved with glowing alien symbols stretched above him. The air smelled like burning stone and metal. At the far end was the boardroom, its giant doors opening slowly, as though the whole world waited behind them. Inside, the 12 executives turned their eyes toward him. Their gazes felt heavy, like weights pressing on his chest. Daniel swallowed hard, his hands shaking at his sides. The chairman leaned forward, his voice calm but sharp. "Human janitor, they say you speak the tongue of my ancestors. Prove it." Daniel froze. His mouth went dry. He wanted to say no, wanted to stay silent. But when the chairman suddenly spoke a line in the alien dialect, a riddle that had no translation, Daniel's brain reacted before his fear could stop him. His lips opened. The answer flowed out smoothly, clearly, perfectly. The entire room gasped. Some executives leaned forward in shock, others recoiled in fear. One dropped his cup. The whisper had grown into thunder. And Daniel realized something terrifying. He was no longer just a rumor. He was now a threat in the eyes of the most powerful aliens in the tower. The boardroom was heavy with silence after Daniel spoke. 12 alien executives stared at him as though he had just opened a tomb of their ancestors. Their glowing eyes did not blink. Their long fingers tapped nervously on the black stone table. For a moment, even the humming of the tower's machinery outside felt distant. Daniel stood at the center, his hands clenched together, his heart beating like a war drum. He didn't even know what he had just said. The words had slipped from his lips like water from a broken jar. And yet every alien in that room had reacted as if he had spoken the voice of their gods. The chairman finally leaned back in his tall seat. His voice was cold, sharp like a blade. "It is not enough. Words can be copied, tricks can be taught. We must test him." The others nodded in agreement, a test one that no human could possibly pass. The first executive stood up. His robe shimmered with golden threads as he walked closer to Daniel. "Deuce." He spoke a riddle in the alien tongue, one that even most young nobles struggled to solve. "The egg lies broken, yet the bird still flies. What am I?" Daniel blinked. He wanted to stay silent. He wanted to say, "I don't know." But the answer burst inside his head like a flame. His mouth opened, and without effort, he answered in their perfect dialect. "Memory."
Nice.
For even when the body is gone, the memory still flies. The alien gasped, stepping back. His jaw tightened, his pride wounded. That riddle was taught only in the academies of the first families. How could a janitor know? A second executive rose, older and fiercer. He leaned forward and hissed, "Translate this." He began chanting words in an ancient dialect even older than the last, words Daniel had never heard before in his life. The sounds twisted like storms, heavy and strange, but Daniel understood them. It felt like his blood warmed, like the words were written inside his veins. His tongue moved with ease. He repeated the chant back flawlessly, even correcting one word the old executive had spoken too fast. The old alien froze. His face turned pale, his skin patterns dimmed. "That correction," he whispered. "It is only taught to the inner council." Murmurs spread across the room. Fear was mixing with awe. Now the chairman himself stood. His silver face markings glowed faintly under the crystal lights. He spoke slowly, carefully, each word dripping with weight. "If you are no spy, then answer this. Human, speak the phrase of binding." The other executives gasped. That phrase was forbidden. It was a vow spoken only by leaders when sealing blood pacts between families. If Daniel spoke it wrong, he could be killed instantly for dishonoring their traditions. Daniel's throat dried. His hands shook. But the words rose inside him again, ancient and deep, echoing like a voice not his own. He straightened his back, his voice clear, and he spoke the phrase of binding in flawless dialect. The sound rolled across the chamber like thunder. Every alien felt it, not just in their ears, but in their bones. The binding phrase had power only a rightful speaker could command. Silence fell heavier than ever before. The chairman's face darkened. His silver markings burned brighter, betraying his unease. "Impossible," he whispered. "Only those of blood may speak it so purely." One of the executives leaned closer, her eyes sharp as knives. "Then perhaps he carries the blood, hidden in the human line, forgotten, but alive." Daniel's heart pounded. He didn't understand their words, but he understood enough. Blood, family, his daughter, fear stabbed him. If they believed his blood carried their power, then his daughter was in danger. The council began to argue among themselves, their voices rising in the alien tongue. Daniel, standing silently, understood every heated word. He must be a weapon. Or a prophecy fulfilled. No, he is a threat to order. Kill him now, before the people hear of this. If the people hear of him, they will bow. He speaks with authority even we cannot deny. Daniel's hands tightened into fists. He wanted to scream that he was just a man, just a father, just a janitor. But inside, a strange feeling stirred. The language did not feel borrowed, felt like it belonged to him, like it had been waiting inside him his whole life. The chairman raised his hand and the arguing stopped. He looked down at Daniel, his eyes burning with both hatred and fascination. "You are no ordinary man," he said slowly. "Whether you are a curse or a blessing, we will find out. But know this, from this moment, you cannot return to the shadows. Every whisper in this tower speaks your name, and soon the galaxy will know you too." Daniel's stomach dropped. He wanted none of this. He wanted to go back to mopping floors, to returning home and reading bedtime stories to his daughter. But that simple life was gone now. The language had betrayed him, and the aliens would never let him go. As the guards led him out of the chamber, Daniel's thoughts raced. He understood now that they would test him again and again, each time pushing him deeper into their world. And sooner or later they would discover the one secret he feared most, his daughter's strange dreams. The drawings she made of glowing figures whispering words at night. If they connected her to him, everything would be lost. The whispers had already spread through the tower. By morning, they would spread through the city, then through the stars. The tired janitor had passed every test. But now, the real test was about to begin. Daniel walked home that night with his heart heavy like stone, that the cold wind bit against his skin as he carried his old jacket tighter around his shoulders. His mind was still trapped in the voices of the council, the strange tests, and the way his lips had moved without permission, speaking a language that was never meant for humans. But his thoughts always ended in one place, his daughter. Her name was Lily. She was just 8 years old, a small girl with bright eyes and messy hair, always waiting by the window whenever he came home late. For her, Daniel was not a janitor. For her, he was a hero. She didn't care about the world of aliens or executives. She only cared that her father came home safe every night. And that night she was waiting again. When Daniel opened the door to their small apartment, Lily rushed into his arms. "Daddy!" she cried, holding him tight. Daniel hugged her close, breathing in her familiar warmth. For a moment, he forgot the council, the whispers, and the danger. For a moment, he was just a father again. But when he looked down at her drawings spread across the table, his blood turned cold. Lily loved to draw. Every night while waiting for her father, she filled pages with pictures of stars, strange creatures, and glowing shapes. But these drawings were different. The pages showed tall, alien figures with silver faces, the same kind Daniel had just seen in the council chamber. Around them were strange symbols written in a language that no human child should know. Daniel froze. His hands trembled as he picked up one page. "Lily, where did you learn this?" The little girl tilted her head, confused. From the glowing people, she said simply. Daniel's heart skipped a beat. "Glowing people," she nodded. "They come in my dreams. They stand by my bed. They whisper words. I don't always understand, but sometimes I remember, so I draw them." Her voice was innocent, but the weight of her words struck Daniel like thunder. The glowing beings. The whispers. The alien tongue. His daughter had been dreaming of them for years. Was this why he could suddenly speak their language? Is this secret tied to her? Daniel knelt down, gripping her small shoulders. "Lily, listen to me. You must never tell anyone about these dreams. You understand? Not your teachers, not your friends, not anyone." She blinked at him, surprised by his serious tone. "Why, Daddy?" "Because..." His throat tightened. He couldn't tell her the full truth. She was too young to understand the danger. Because some people wouldn't understand, they might try to take you away. Lily's eyes grew wide with fear, and she clung to him tightly. "But you wouldn't let them, right?" Daniel hugged her close, hiding his own fear. "Never," he whispered. "I'll never let anyone take you." That night, after Lily fell asleep, Daniel sat alone by the window. The city outside glowed with alien lights, towers stretching high into the misty sky. He thought of the council. He thought of their words, if the child carries the same tongue. They suspected already. If the executives discovered Lily's dreams, they would come for her. They would claim she was theirs. And they would use her for whatever plans they had whispered about in that dark chamber. Daniel's chest burned with determination. He had spent his life cleaning other people's mess, bowing his head, staying invisible. But for his daughter, he would not stay invisible anymore. If they tried to take her, he would fight heaven, if the whole galaxy stood against him. But his fears came true sooner than expected. Just before dawn, Daniel was awakened by a loud knock at the door. His heart jumped, grabbed the nearest objective metal pipe from under the sink and crept toward the sound. The knock came again, sharper this time than a voice. A cold, commanding, alien, human Daniel, open by order of the council. They had come already. He rushed to Lily's room. She was still asleep, her small body curled under the blanket, drawings scattered around her bed. He shook her gently awake. "Lily, get up." Quickly, her sleepy eyes blinked. "Daddy, no time," he whispered. "Hide under the bed. Stay quiet. No matter what you hear, don't come out." Fear filled her little face, but she obeyed. She crawled under the bed, clutching her blanket, her wide eyes looking up at him, as if asking for a promise. Daniel nodded to her, forcing a calm smile he didn't feel. Then he closed the door softly. The knock at the door turned into a heavy slam. Daniel opened it before they could break it down. Two tall alien guards stood there, armored and glowing faintly in the hallway light. Behind them, an executive in silver robes waited, his cold eyes scanning the apartment. "You are summoned again," the executive said. His voice dripped with authority. "Bring the child." Daniel's blood boiled. He gripped the metal pipe tighter. "My daughter is not your concern." The executive's lips curled. "Do not lie, human." The whispers spread quickly. "The child is tied to this gift. If you resist, you will be crushed." Daniel stood firm. "She's just a little girl. Leave her out of this." The guard stepped forward, hand reaching for his weapon. Daniel raised the pipe, ready to fight. His muscles trembled, but his eyes burned with fury. He knew he was only one man, a janitor with no power. But he also knew one thing. He would rather die here than let them take Lily. The standoff filled the apartment with thick silence. Then, suddenly, a strange sound broke through. From Lily's room came a faint voice, speaking softly in the alien tongue. The words were clear, perfect, like a song. "Hey." The executive's eyes widened in shock. The guards froze. Daniel's heart sank. She was speaking in her sleep, murmuring the words whispered by her glowing visitors. The secret was no longer hidden. The executive smiled slowly, coldly. "So it is true," he whispered. "The gift passes to the child." Daniel's hands shook around the pipe. His worst fear had come alive. And in that moment, he knew the battle had only just begun. Daniel's knuckles were white as he gripped the metal pipe in his hand. The alien executive stood in his living room like a shadow of judgment, his eyes glowing with cruel interest. Behind him, two armored guards waited silently, their weapons ready. From the bedroom, Daniel could still hear Lily's faint voice, murmuring the alien tongue in her sleep. The executive smiled, sharp and slow. "The child does carry it," he said. "The gift, the blood, the voice of our ancestors." Daniel's chest tightened. His secret was no longer a secret. They had seen enough to confirm their suspicions, and now they would never stop. "You will not touch her," Daniel said, his voice trembling with both fear and fury. The executive raised an eyebrow. "Do you believe you can stop us? You are one man, a janitor. We command empires." Daniel lifted the pipe higher, his body shaking but his eyes locked with theirs. "She's just a little girl, my little girl. I will fight anyone who tries to take her." The guards shifted, ready to strike. But the executive raised a hand, stopping them. His eyes gleamed with something more dangerous than violence calculation. "No," he said. "Killing you would be wasteful. You are useful. Both of you are.
Ow.
The council wishes to study this, to shape it, see something greater, an opportunity." Daniel frowned, uncertain. "What do you mean?" The executive leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You have a gift none of your kind possesses. You speak our oldest tongue with the strength of blood that makes you valuable. And value can protect you if you choose wisely. Daniel's hands tightened on the pipe. What choice are you talking about? The executive smiled. Serve us. Become what you were meant to be. If you do, your daughter will be trained, honored, even exalted among my people. She will be safe. But if you refuse, his smile faded into a cold glare. She will be taken. You will never see her again. The words cut through Daniel like a blade. He knew the aliens were ruthless. He had seen how they treated humans, tools, workers, shadows to be ignored. Now they wanted his daughter not as a child, but as a key, a weapon. Daniel's mind spun, wanted to fight, but deep inside he knew he could not win against armies. His only weapon now was the one they feared most, his voice in their ancient tongue. He lowered the pipe slowly, breathing hard. You want me to serve you? He said. Then hear my terms. The executive blinked in surprise. Terms, yes, Daniel said firmly. His fear began to harden into something else. If you want me, if you want my daughter, then you will follow my conditions. Or you will have nothing. The guard stiffened, ready to attack, but the executive raised his hand again, curiosity flickering in his eyes. Interesting, he murmured. And what conditions does a janitor dare demand? Daniel's voice grew steady. He spoke in their language now, the ancient dialect that made the room itself seem to vibrate. By your own laws, one who speaks the tongue of ancestors holds authority. You cannot deny this. The executive's eyes widened slightly. The guards exchanged nervous glances. The words Daniel had spoken were true. Their law said that anyone who could speak the first dialect with purity had rights, even if they were not of their kind. It was an old law, rarely remembered, but it bound them still. Daniel pressed forward, his voice stronger. My daughter stays with me, always. You do not separate us. You do not harm her. If you want me to stand before your council, if you want me to use this tongue for you, then she remains under my protection. The executive's lips curled into a thin smile. You dare to bargain with me? Daniel stepped closer, his eyes fierce. I'm not bargaining. I'm stating the law in your own words. Can't break it, and you know it. The air in the room grew heavy. The guard shifted uneasily, not daring to interrupt. For the first time, Daniel felt the power of his voice. He was no longer a silent janitor cleaning floors. He was something they could not control so easily. Finally, the executive laughed softly, though there was no warmth in it. Very well, human. You win for now. Keep the child. But know this. Every eye in the council is upon you. You falter, if you stumble, your bargain will collapse, and both of you will be taken without mercy. He turned and gestured for the guards to leave. At the door, he paused and glanced back, his silver-marked face gleaming under the dim apartment light. Remember this night? You may think you have power, but in truth, you are walking on the edge of a blade. Then he was gone. Daniel locked the door quickly, his chest rising and falling as if he had just run a battle. He leaned against the wall, the metal pipe slipping from his hand with a dull clang. His body trembled, but inside his heart burned with new strength. He had forced them to obey their own law. He had bought time for himself and for Lily. He hurried into her room. She was sitting up now, wide-eyed and frightened. Daddy, who were they? She asked. Daniel knelt beside her bed, brushing her hair back gently. There are people who think they can take you away, but I won't let them. Lily's small hands clung to his. They sounded angry. Daniel nodded. They were. But I made them agree to leave you here. As long as I do what they ask, they'll keep their distance. Her eyes filled with tears. I don't want to go with them. I only want to stay with you. Daniel pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. And you will, I promise. But deep inside, he knew promises were fragile. The bargain had saved them tonight, but danger was only growing. The council would test him again. They would push him harder. And if he made even one mistake, they would take Lily without hesitation. As dawn broke, Daniel sat awake by the window, watching the alien city glow in the morning light. He was no longer just a janitor. He was a father caught in the middle of a power greater than he had ever imagined. He had made a bargain with predators. Though he had won a small victory, he knew the real fight was only beginning. The summons came sooner than Daniel expected. Only 2 days after the bargain, armored guards arrived at his apartment before sunrise. They gave him no chance to refuse. "The council demands your presence," one said coldly. "Bring the child if you wish her to remain safe." Daniel's heart twisted. He didn't want Lily anywhere near them, but he also knew leaving her behind was more dangerous. The council suspected disobedience. They might take her in secret. So he held her small hand tightly, whispering comfort as the guards led them through the alien city. The tower loomed larger than ever, its spires stabbing the morning sky. Daniel had walked these halls many times as a janitor, pushing his mop cart quietly while aliens ignored him. But today every step felt different. He was not invisible anymore. When the elevator doors opened, Daniel and Lily stepped into the grand assembly hall, a place few humans had ever seen. It was vast, with crystal walls glowing faintly, etched with the runes of alien ancestors. Hundreds of nobles filled the rows of seats, their robes gleaming with gold and silver. The air was heavy with the murmur of voices, a storm of whispers passing from mouth to mouth. At the far end, upon a high platform, sat the council. 12 figures cloaked in authority, their faces carved with power. And at the very center, the chairman waited, his silver-marked skin glowing under the great light. Daniel could feel the weight of every eye in the hall. Hundreds of alien nobles staring at him, a human janitor holding his daughter's hand. He wanted to shrink, but something inside him refused. His fear was burning into steel. The chairman raised his hand. Silence fell across the hall. His voice echoed, cold and commanding. "This human stands accused of wielding the tongue of our ancestors. We shall see if he truly carries its weight or if he is a fraud." The crowd stirred, eyes flashing with anticipation. Some looked at Daniel with anger, others with curiosity, and a few with something like hope. Daniel tightened his grip on Lily's hand. He whispered to her, "Stay strong, no matter what happens." She nodded, though her small face was pale with fear. The first test began. One elder executive stood and recited a passage from ancient law, words that had not been spoken in public for generations. His voice was shaky, the words heavy and complex. He turned sharply to Daniel. "Translate." Daniel felt the language rise within him like a tide. He spoke the words back perfectly, his voice strong and smooth. The hall gasped. Murmurs spread instantly. The second test came from another noble, who demanded Daniel solve a riddle in the old dialect. The riddle was designed to confuse even trained scholars. But Daniel's lips moved before his mind even caught up. The answer flowed out, crisp and flawless. The nobles leaned forward in shock. Some clapped hands against the table in disbelief. But the true test came from the chairman himself. He rose slowly, his presence filling the hall like thunder. His eyes locked on Daniel with deadly intensity. "Human," he said in the oldest form of the language, one even many nobles struggled to understand. "If you are true, speak the vow that binds empires. Speak it here before this hall, and let us see if the ancestors answer you." The entire hall fell into breathless silence. The vow was sacred. To speak, it was to claim authority equal to kings. No outsider had ever dared. If Daniel failed, he would be destroyed. Daniel's chest heaved. He looked down at Lily, who stared back with wide, trusting eyes. In that moment, he realized something. This wasn't about him anymore. It never had been. It was about her future. If he backed down, they would take her. If he faltered, they would call him a liar. But if he stood strong, he could protect her. He straightened his back. His voice rang out, not trembling, but clear and powerful. "By voice and by blood, I bind my line to truth. By breath and by fire, I speak as heir, not slave." The sound rolled across the chamber like a storm. The crystals on the walls shimmered, as though the very hall recognized the words. Gasps filled the room. Nobles stood in shock. Some bowed their heads, unable to deny the authority in his tone. Others shouted in outrage. "Impossible! Blasphemy! Human cannot speak this vow," but no one could deny what they had just heard. The vow was perfect, the sound pure, the authority undeniable. The chairman's face darkened. His silver markings glowed brighter, betraying his fury. He slammed his hand on the table and the hall shook. "Silence!" he roared. The crowd froze. The chairman leaned forward, his voice trembling with both anger and fear. This human, this janitor dares to stand as if he were one of us, but the vow has been spoken. By our law, we cannot deny it." The nobles erupted again, torn between rage and awe. Some shouted for Daniel's death. Others whispered that prophecy had been fulfilled. Daniel stood at the center, his chest rising and falling, his daughter's hand in his. He was no longer just a man who mopped floors. He had spoken words that bent the will of the council itself. Lily tugged his sleeve softly, whispering, "Daddy, they're all looking at you." Daniel knelt to her level, forcing a small smile. "Let them look," he said quietly. "They'll never take you from me." But inside he knew the truth. His victory here was dangerous. Every word he spoke made him stronger in the eyes of the people, but also marked him as a threat to the rulers. The more he proved himself, the more desperately they would want him destroyed. And as the hall echoed with the voices of hundreds of aliens, Daniel realized the road ahead was sharper than any blade. The janitor had become more than a rumor. He'd become a storm. The grand assembly hall was still buzzing after Daniel spoke the sacred vow. Nobles argued among themselves, some shouting for his execution, others whispering of prophecy. But no one could deny the truth. He had spoken with power that belonged only to the highest bloodlines. Daniel stood in the center, his chest heaving, Lily's small hand still clutched in his. He had not planned for this. He had only wanted to protect her, to keep her safe from the claws of power. Yet here he was, standing before hundreds of alien nobles, his voice echoing like thunder, shaking the very foundation of their law. The chairman slammed his hand against the table, silencing the uproar. His glowing silver markings pulsed with rage. "Enough!" he roared. His gaze fell upon Daniel. "By our law, your words cannot be denied. You stand as one who speaks with the authority of ancestors. But remember this, human you are still fragile. One misstep, and you and your child will be nothing but dust beneath our feet." The threat was clear, yet Daniel no longer bowed his head like a janitor. He straightened his back, his voice steady. "You call me fragile, but last night I was only a man mopping floors. Today your entire hall bows to words from my mouth. If that is fragility, then perhaps it is stronger than your crowns." Gasps rippled through the nobles. Lily looked up at her father with wide eyes, awe shining in them. The council dismissed the gathering, but the damage was done. Rumors spread faster than fire. By the time Daniel stepped out of the tower with Lily, crowds had already gathered in the city below. Humans, who had always been treated as shadows, looked at him with hope. Some even knelt, whispering his name. Aliens, too, lower families and servants, looked at him differently, not with scorn, but with curiosity and fear. For the first time, Daniel realized the truth. He was no longer just fighting for Lily. He was fighting for something far bigger. His voice had given humans a place they had never dreamed of, a seat at a table they had always been locked out from. That night, Daniel sat by Lily's bed as she slept. His mind replayed every word, every test, every whisper of prophecy. He remembered the bargain he had made, the laws he had used against them, the vow that had shaken the hall. He knew the council would never forgive him. They would never stop watching, never stop waiting for him to fail. But he also knew something else. They were afraid of him, afraid of what he represented, afraid of a janitor who had spoken like a king. Daniel smiled faintly in the quiet. For years, he had been invisible. Now, the galaxy could not look away. The following weeks changed everything. Executives began sending him messages, asking for his words in council meetings. Nobles debated whether he was chosen by fate or a dangerous mistake. Humans across the city whispered his name with pride. The first time, they lifted their heads a little higher, no longer just silent workers. Daniel never forgot who he was doing this for. Every time he stood in front of the council, every time he used the ancient tongue, he thought of Lily's small hand in his. He thought of her future. He thought of the promise he had made to never let anyone take her away. And slowly, without meaning to, the janitor became more than a father fighting for his daughter. He became a leader. But leadership was not glory. It was danger. Every day, Daniel walked a knife's edge. Some aliens plotted to kill him quietly. Others tried to lure him with wealth and power. But Daniel refused to be bought. His loyalty stayed with his daughter and with the humans who now looked to him with hope in their eyes. One night, as he tucked Lily into bed, she asked softly. Daddy, are you still a janitor? Daniel smiled, brushing her hair gently. Yes, he said. I'll always be a janitor. But now, I'm also something else. What? She whispered, sleep tugging at her voice. He kissed her forehead. A man who speaks so you can live free? The galaxy had changed without warning. The whispers of a janitor had turned into the roar of a leader. Daniel had begun his journey scrubbing floors no one cared about. Now his words shook the pillars of alien power. And though the path ahead was filled with danger, he was no longer afraid, because he knew one truth. He was not just a janitor. He was a father. He was a voice. He was a leader. And the galaxy would never forget the day a single dad, holding a mop in his daughter's hand, spoke the language of kings.